Is there real archaeological proof that King David, the famous king from the Bible, actually existed? For centuries, historians debated whether David, the shepherd who defeated Goliath and later ruled the kingdom of Israel, was a real historical ruler or simply a legendary figure passed down through ancient texts. But in the late 20th century, archaeologists made a discovery that would change this debate forever. Hidden among the ruins of an ancient city, a broken stone inscription appeared to contain the first non-biblical reference to the House of David. If true, it would mean that the biblical king was not just a story, but a real figure remembered by ancient civilizations. To understand this discovery, we have to travel back nearly 3,000 years to the ancient world of kings, wars, and rising kingdoms. According to biblical history, King David lived around 1000 BC. He began his life as a shepherd, but eventually rose to become one of the most important rulers in the history of Israel. The Bible describes David as a warrior, poet, and leader who united the tribes of Israel and established Jerusalem as the political and spiritual capital of his kingdom. Under David's leadership, Israel expanded its influence across the region, defeating rival groups such as the Philistines and establishing a powerful monarchy. After David's death, his son Solomon would continue the dynasty, building the famous First Temple in Jerusalem. For thousands of years, these stories were preserved in the biblical texts. But outside the Bible, historians had very little evidence confirming David's existence. Because of this, some scholars began to question whether David had truly been a historical king. Was he a real ruler or simply a legendary hero? That question remained unanswered for centuries. Everything began to change in 1993 when archaeologists excavating the ancient site of Tel Dan uncovered fragments of a black basalt stone monument. The stone contained an inscription written in ancient Aramaic. This artifact would later become known as the Tel Dan Stele. As researchers carefully studied the inscription, they noticed something remarkable. Within the text appeared a phrase translated as House of David. In the ancient world, the phrase House of usually referred to a royal dynasty. For example, historians often referred to the House of Caesar or the House of Tudor. So when scholars saw the phrase House of David, it suggested that neighboring kingdoms recognized the dynasty founded by David. This was a major breakthrough. For the first time, a historical inscription outside the Bible appeared to mention David's royal lineage. Many historians considered this discovery one of the most important pieces of archaeological evidence related to the biblical monarchy. Even with the discovery of the Tel Dan inscription, archaeologists still wanted to know more about David's kingdom. If David truly ruled a powerful kingdom, there should be physical evidence of cities, fortifications, and government centers dating to his era. The most important place to search for that evidence was Jerusalem. Excavations in Jerusalem have uncovered ancient walls, large stone structures, and administrative buildings that date back roughly to the period traditionally associated with David and Solomon. Some archaeologists believe these discoveries may represent the remains of the early Israelite monarchy. However, the archaeology of Jerusalem is extremely complex. The city has been continuously inhabited for thousands of years, meaning many ancient layers lie buried beneath later construction. Because of this, researchers must carefully analyze each discovery to determine its exact age and historical significance. In recent years, archaeologists have uncovered additional evidence from sites across ancient Israel that may shed light on the time of David. One such site is Khirbet Qeiyafa, where excavations revealed a fortified city dating to around the early 10th century BC, the same time many historians associate with David's reign. The city contained massive walls, gates, and evidence of organized administration. Some researchers believe this site could represent a frontier city connected to the early kingdom of Judah. If that interpretation is correct, it suggests that a structured political system existed in the region during David's time. However, archaeology often raises as many questions as it answers. Scholars continue to debate the size and power of David's kingdom. Some believe he ruled a large and influential state. Others argue his kingdom may have been smaller than the Bible describes. But regardless of these debates, one fact has become increasingly difficult to deny. The discovery of the Tel Dan Stele shows that a dynasty known as the House of David was recognized in the ancient Near East. This means that the memory of David as a founding king was preserved not only in biblical writings, but also in historical records created by neighboring kingdoms. Today, King David remains one of the most influential figures in biblical history. He is remembered not only as a king and warrior, but also as a poet credited with composing many of the Psalms. His story continues to inspire religious traditions, historical studies, and archaeological research. But perhaps the most fascinating part of David's story is that archaeology continues to uncover new clues about his world. Each discovery, whether an inscription, city wall, or ancient artifact, adds another piece to the puzzle of the ancient kingdom that once existed in the hills of Israel. And as new technologies allow researchers to study ancient sites in greater detail, the story of David and his kingdom may become even clearer, because somewhere beneath the ruins of ancient cities, buried beneath layers of time and history, the past is still waiting to be discovered. And with every excavation, archaeologists move one step closer to answering a question that has fascinated historians for generations. Did the legendary king of the Bible truly rule an ancient kingdom? Or are we only beginning to uncover the historical reality behind the story of King David? For many historians today, the discovery of the Tel Dan Stele raised an even more controversial question. If a foreign kingdom referred to the House of David, how powerful was David's kingdom really? The Bible describes David ruling a strong and unified kingdom centered in Jerusalem. It speaks of military victories, expanding borders, and a royal dynasty that would shape the future of Israel. But not all archaeologists agree with that picture. Some scholars believe David ruled a large and organized kingdom that controlled much of the region. Others argue that David may have been a smaller tribal leader whose story later grew in the telling. This disagreement has created one of the most fascinating debates in biblical archaeology. Was David the ruler of a powerful empire, or the founder of a much smaller kingdom that later generations magnified? The truth may lie hidden beneath the ancient ground of Jerusalem itself. The problem is that modern Jerusalem is one of the most politically and religiously sensitive cities in the world. Major archaeological excavations are extremely limited because the city is sacred to billions of people across multiple religions. This means that the very place where David is believed to have ruled is also one of the hardest places on earth to fully excavate. In other words, the evidence that could settle the debate may still be buried beneath the streets of the modern city. Yet archaeology continues to move forward. In recent decades, researchers studying ancient structures in the area known as the City of David have uncovered massive stone walls, royal buildings, and administrative centers that date back thousands of years. Some archaeologists believe these structures may represent the early royal complex of the Israelite monarchy. Others remain cautious, arguing that more evidence is needed before linking these ruins directly to David himself. And this is where the mystery deepens, because archaeology has already shown that the biblical world was far more historically grounded than many critics once believed. For example, ancient cities once dismissed as legends, such as Nineveh and Babylon, were eventually rediscovered by archaeologists centuries later. What if the same thing is happening with the story of David? What if we are only at the beginning of uncovering the historical footprint of his kingdom? Modern technology is now transforming archaeology in ways that were impossible just a few decades ago. Researchers are using satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and artificial intelligence to detect ancient structures buried deep beneath the earth, without even digging. These technologies are beginning to reveal hidden ruins, forgotten cities, and ancient roads that once connected entire civilizations. Some experts believe that within the next few decades, these tools could uncover new evidence about the early kingdom of Israel and the rulers who shaped it. And if new inscriptions or royal monuments are discovered, they could dramatically change what we know about King David and his dynasty. But the story of David is not only about archaeology, it is also about influence, because the legacy of King David continues to shape the modern world in ways many people do not realize. 3 of the world's major religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, trace important parts of their historical and spiritual traditions back to David. His name appears in sacred texts, historical traditions, and cultural memory across thousands of years. Even today, the city David established as his capital, Jerusalem, remains one of the most significant and contested cities on earth. Which means the story of David is not just ancient history, it is still influencing modern politics, religion, and global culture today. And perhaps the most intriguing part of this story is that the ground beneath Jerusalem and the surrounding regions has not yet revealed all its secrets. Every year, archaeologists uncover new artifacts, inscriptions, and ruins that reshape our understanding of the ancient world. Some of the most important discoveries in biblical archaeology have been made only in the last few decades, which raises an extraordinary possibility. What if somewhere beneath the soil of the ancient Near East lies an undiscovered palace, inscription, or royal archive that directly connects us to the time of David? What if the next major discovery could finally reveal the true scale of the kingdom he ruled? For now, the mystery remains, but history has shown us something remarkable. The past has a way of resurfacing. Empires once thought lost have been rediscovered. Cities buried for thousands of years have been uncovered. And stories once dismissed as legend have sometimes turned out to contain surprising historical truth. So the question remains open. Was King David exactly the ruler described in the Bible? Or is archaeology still slowly uncovering the real history behind one of the most famous kings in human civilization? The answer may still be waiting beneath the ground, waiting for the next discovery. And perhaps the most exciting part is this. The story of the ancient world is far from finished. If you enjoy uncovering hidden history, ancient mysteries, and the archaeology behind the Bible, make sure to subscribe to Ancient Bible History. Because in the next videos, we'll explore more lost cities, forgotten empires, and discoveries that could change the way we understand the ancient world forever.